Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, when the spokesman becomes the headline, it's never a good idea. Today, White House spokesman Sean Spicer admitted he had screwed up by saying Adolf Hitler had never used chemical weapons against his own people, like Syria's President Assad. Mr. Spicer said the remarks had been inexcusable and reprehensible, telling reporters at an event in Washington he had let President Trump down. Our foreign affairs correspondent Jonathan Rugman reports.
In the communications business, it's a basic rule that the messenger shouldn't become the story.
So, Sean, let's start with yesterday.
A rule Sean Spicer is learning the hard way. This morning he issued his third apology for suggesting that even Hitler wasn't as bad as President Assad of Syria in gassing his own people.
I made a mistake. There's no other way. There's no other way to say it. I got into a topic that I shouldn't have, and I screwed up. On a professional level, it's disappointing because I think I've let the president down.
Yesterday's gaffe of apparently forgetting Hitler's genocide offended Jews in this, the week of Passover.
I think when you come to sarin gas, he was not using the gas on his own people the same way that Assad is doing. I mean, there was clearly, I understand your point. Thank you.
President Trump's daughter Ivanka, his son-in-law and their children are Jewish.
Sean Spicer is joining us.
And by last night, the White House spokesman had swapped his usual confrontation with the media for regret, even if this interview with the son of Holocaust survivors also blundered off message.
Obviously, it was my blunder, as you put it correctly, and I came out to make sure that we stay focused on what the president's doing and his decisive action. I needed to make sure that I clarified and not was in any way, shape, or form any more of a distraction from the president's decisive action in Syria and the attempts that he's making to destabilize the region.
That mistake compounded by Spicer repeatedly unable to pronounce President Assad's name.
There's no way that I can see a stable and peaceful Syria with Bashar al-Assad in charge.
Bashar al-Assad, I know you've mispronounced his name a few times.
Last year, Mr. Trump lambasted his predecessor's press secretary in words which seem all too apposite now.
You know, having the right press secretary is so important because he is so bad the way he delivers a message. He can deliver a positive message and it sounds bad.
Speaking for Mr. Trump himself is surely even harder, given the president's penchant for crafting his own unpredictable message. Though Mr. Spicer is also now accused of formulating policy on the hoof, suggesting on Monday that President Trump may not be finished with bombing Syria yet.
If you gas a baby, if you put a barrel bomb in to innocent people, I think you will see a response from this president.
Yesterday, he repeatedly described Iran as a failed state alongside Syria and North Korea.
And the time is up. Nice to see you, Sean. Thank you very much.
Today, he sounded subdued, asking for forgiveness and saying that he loved his job. And even if his boss decides to replace him, finding a candidate up to the task may not be easy.
Thanks very much, Greta and Mr. Spicer.
Well, joining me now from Nashville, Tennessee, the political commentator and Trump supporter, Scotty Nell Hughes. What's so amazing about Sean Spicer, or what's he got on Trump that means he's worth hanging on to when he starts his career as a laughingstock and ends it by offending people across the world?
Well, actually, he started off his career as a spokesman and communication director for the RNC and did a very good job and came over with Chief of Staff Priebus. But let me say this, second only to the person who runs President Trump's teleprompter during one of his campaign speeches, I think anyone in the role of press secretary has a very challenging job due to the fact that we have a commander-in-chief that not only sleeps 3 to 4 hours per night, but is very aggressive with his policy. And I think going down this road, he made a gaffe. He was trying to basically paraphrase something that was said earlier by General Mattis, and he was trying, but he unfortunately did a gaffe, but immediately he corrected it.
The like of which we've never seen before.
It was a disaster, but he admitted that he had done that. And I would like to take anybody who has ever been as much in the public eye day after day after day, like Sean Spicer has.
How about every other White House spokesman in history?
But they've never had the focus, and they've never had a president who has drawn so much attention from so much negative and positive attention day after day, having to field off. Like I said, it was a bad mistake. It was a horrible mistake. Nobody should ever in any way reference something to 6 million people being massacred like what we saw with the Holocaust. But he apologized for it, and I fear the road we're going down right now, sir, is that you're going to have a very scripted press secretary who, whenever he does a daily press briefing, it will be scripted, and maybe journalists will have to submit things ahead of time in writing, and that doesn't necessarily do us any good either. So he made a mistake. He asked for an apology. Let's move on.
Well, let's move on then to the substantive stuff that's going on in Russia with the talks between Tillerson and Lavrov and Putin. Now, up until this time, of course, the real story around Russia and Trump has been how close the Trump campaign was to Russia and how Russia was accused of trying to help the Trump campaign win the election. Now we've had a complete turnaround and what we're being seen as described as a new low point. Do you think this helps Trump in America or damages him?
Well, it doesn't matter about PR. It's actually what is the actuality about it. And I think you're right. It's an accusation of close Trump ties between the Trump campaign to Russia, to which there's never been any real evidence produced for the people to see, any physical evidence. All it has been is hearsay and accusations. So now we're in a very strained relationship between the United States and Russia. And what is very negative about this, I fear, going forward, is Russia could be a very good ally to the United States in fighting the real threat that we have, which is Islamic jihadism, which continues to plague our headlines every single day. So the fact that we have a strange relationship in Russia could be very detrimental and very dangerous on world hands, as they are one of the ones that could help us be able to limit this in the future.
Well, that's what your man Donald Trump was saying throughout his campaign, and then he seems to have watched TV after this particular attack and changed his opinion completely, it seems, on what to do about Syria. And that's what seems very strange to a lot of observers, that, you know, that he apparently wasn't watching television the last time there was a sarin gas attack, or the time before that, or during all the terrible bombing campaigns in which hundreds of thousands of Syrian civilians have been killed. What was it, do you think, that has changed the position so fundamentally? Or is it just that he was watching Fox News one day?
Well, it's not. If you want to believe that it was just because he was watching TV that he decided to take 59 Tomahawk missiles and launch them at an airbase in Syria, then I will show you lots of other pictures on TV that should be able to, that we would be seeing bomb launchings every day for horrible things that are happening to children in countries around the world. But there was another reason, I believe, why President Trump did this. He wanted to send the message, a very strong, clear message, that he is not afraid to use full force. And when you're dealing with basically unstable dictators like what we see in North Korea with Kim Jong-il, he was sending him a direct message saying, I have no fear striking you in the middle of the night, and unlike the past pansy of an administration that drew a red line with a crayon, I am going to not give you a heads up and a calling card warning of it. And I think that was even more of a message he was trying to send to, unfortunately, some of the atrocities that have been allowed to build because of the failed foreign policy of the Obama administration around the world.
Scotty Nell Hughes, thank you very much.
I've been getting away with it all.